Everything that we know and love about Toyota today is built on the backs of the Innova. The quality, durability, reliability, sheer effortlessness and sheer longevity. But before the Innova, there was this, the Qualis, the car that Toyota launched their Indian innings with. And when the Qualis came to India, start of the 2000s, this looked 20 years old. It looked like a dated car. But what it did really well. And that was last forever. And today, on Gone But Not Forgotten, we got another pristine example of the Toyota Qualis. What are your memories of the Qualis? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy our Gone But Not Forgotten series, give us a thumbs up, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts, and of course, smash that bell icon and stay subscribed to the Evo India channel. They call it a brick, a box on wheels. Everything that they said about that time was all critical about the styling. Some even used the words horrendous to describe the Qualis' styling. And even when it was new, 2001, this looked dated. This looked 2 decades old. We didn't have great looking cars back then. The Sumo, the Armada Grand weren't really striking vehicles. But by the standards of the class, even then, the Qualis, it looked old, it looked dated. And everything was just straight, arrow straight lines drawn with a ruler. Even the creases in the bodywork, everything drawn with the ruler. These wheels, 14-inch wheels, that also came in for a lot of criticism because it looked very disproportionate. The Armada Grand had 15-inch wheels, which looked a little bit more proportionate, a little bit more butch, but this was pure functional, a pure MPV. Now, this particular example, this is the facelift that came in a couple of years after the Qualis was launched, so it got a little bit more garnish on the chrome grille, little bit more in terms of graphics, alloy wheels. Earlier it was only pressed steel wheels, this tail lamp extension into the tailgate. But apart from that, everything else remained the same. This was a little dated in terms of the design. What you will notice, this wasn't standard, but this was the reverse parking camera of that time. So through the wing mirror, through the rear view mirror, you could see the edge of the bumper and you could park this with precision. But yeah, overall, the styling, extremely functional, extremely basic, but it worked really well. And of course, I must mention, GS stood for Grand Saloon. High Funda names for what was a pure MUV. The Qualis had proper 3-row seating. You either had jump seats at the back in the 3rd row or a proper forward-facing 3rd row. And getting in was not very difficult. A wide door aperture. And then when you're sitting at the back, there is decent enough room. There are SUVs even today that are more cramped in the 3rd row where your knees are jutting into your nose. But here, it's okay. The seat back angle is nice. There's enough headroom. There's okay knee room. So you can fit in at the back, except if you actually sat in at the back and the driver was driving a bit enthusiastically, here this would be extremely bouncy. The Qualis had soft suspension, so the ride comfort was good, but over undulating roads, it bounced all over the place. With this facelift, the dampers and the springs were stiffened up a bit, so it was a little bit more sorted. But the Qualis that we had in our fleet back in the overdrive days, that was one of the very first Qualises. That was soft, and sitting here, tucked in here, only the interns would sit here. Everybody else would be in the front. In fact, anybody above editor level would not even drive the Qualis. So out here, this was bouncy as hell and it would make you sick. Let me take you back to the early days when I started off as a journalist at Overdrive. Adil, the editor back then, he had the Qualis and he loved it to bits. And every month we would pile down to Mumbai from Pune to close issue, send the magazine to press. Now, everybody else would take whatever was new and latest and shiny in the fleet, the City, the Baleno, all of those other cars. But Adil, he loved the Qualis to bits and he would always do these Mumbai-Pune trips in the Qualis. And I was his designated co-driver. So I would always be sat here in the passenger seat. Adil would always be driving himself. So I would be sat here. And that's when I really understood the tricks that Toyota played with the Qualis. And one was this front seat, this was it. It would not move any further back. So even though it was just the two of us, you could not really push the seat all the way back and stretch out. My feet were always in this sort of bent position because the seat rails, it would not move further back, and that was to ensure that the rear seat passengers would not complain if the front seat guy was sitting nice and stretched out. The other thing is the space between the two front seats. There was enough space to actually put a refrigerator, and that's where we would pile in sandwiches, cans of Coke, and fortify ourselves for this long drive that was the Pune-Mumbai trips before the expressway was put in. This is the max that the front seat will go back to, so the driver is never really stretched out and comfortable. And at the back also, there's not that much space. Obviously, those days, captain seats in the middle row were a novelty, so the Qualis never got that. You either got jump seats or a proper forward-facing third row, and this was as comfortable could get in a Qualis. You were always in close proximity to all your family, friends, other passengers in a cab. Everybody was in close proximity. I'm not sure if the Qualis was the very first car with the roof-mounted aircon. I think the Safari had it before that, and the Safari predated the Qualis, so this is not the very first, but this was the one where everything worked and worked properly. There were no ungainly gaps, no places where the air would leak out, the vents would not fall onto your face, water would not drip onto you. Everything worked really well. Aesthetically, it might not be the most pleasing to look at, but it worked really well. The Qualis was launched in Jan of 2000 at a starting price of Rs 4.59 lakh for the absolute base version without aircon. 6 versions were offered with the prices topping off at 7.4 lakhs for the GST, the Grand Saloon Touring version. A year later came the first anniversary edition in black with gold colored badging. In August of 2001 came the Festival edition with the tag Light Sports model for highway cruising. In Jan 2002 came the Petrol Qualis, the 2-liter engine putting out 94 bhp but not garnering much attention from buyers. In September 2002 came the Facelift that you see here. The RS variant was first offered only with the petrol and later also got the diesel engine. In September 2003 came the FS to celebrate 1 lakh sales. And finally in April of 2004 came the Mist edition, positioned as a trendy multi-purpose vehicle that combines style and performance. The 2.4-litre diesel engine of the Qualis was in a very mild state of tune to obviously ensure its long-term reliability and longevity. It made 74 bhp, 151 Newton meters of torque, numbers that aren't earth-shattering by any stretch of the imagination. 0 to 100 took 28.6 odd seconds. Top speed, mushkil se it would get to 130 kilometers per hour. And easy cruising speed was 110, 120 kilometers per hour. In fact, this was, I think, one of the very few vehicles that you got to 100 kmph in 5th gear. You had to go through all the gears to get to 100 kmph. So it took its own sweet time to get there. And also, like all old school diesel engines, there was enough noise. You weren't going to fool anybody by saying that this was a petrol. Even though the Qualis did get a petrol, I think very few were actually sold in the petrol. It was not even worth mentioning. And I don't think you'll even find a petrol Qualis around. But it was the diesel engine that was the workhorse. And I must point out that when this diesel engine came to India in the Qualis 2001, by that time, it was already 2 decades old. It was already used in service, but it had proper lineage. It had done service in the Hilux, in the Land Cruiser, and the Land Cruiser Prado. So this engine had gone to the ends of the earth and back. Then it arrived in India, and then it went on and on and on forever. 250,000 kilometers, easy, would not even need a rebuild. There are Qualises that have done 750,000 kilometers. This version has done 161,000 kilometers. So it has been used and used, no problem. As long as you service it on time, it will just run and run and run without a problem at all. Now the NVH, it's not really problematic. Of course, you can hear the engine, but it's not deafening. The vibrations, once you get over that initial shake of the gear lever, in fact, on these versions, that shake has been reduced to a fair bit. Our very first Qualis that we had in those overdrive days, that really rocked on its mounts, and if you weren't careful, it would smash into your knee and it would be really painful. I've experienced that firsthand extremely painful when that rocking gear lever smashes into your knee. And then the other problem, the soft suspension. This would rock and roll, baby. So on these kind of road, it gives you a good ride comfort, but otherwise you're constantly rocking over bumpy roads. Sudhir, our copywriter in our overdrive days, he described the ride quality of the Qualis really well, describing a drive from Pune to Mumbai with Adil at the wheel. This is what he had to say. The Qualis went up against the Sumo, the Armada Grand. This was an MUV, not an MPV either, a multi-utility vehicle. Compared to the others, the Sumo, it needed to be man-handled. Even though it had power steering, it really needed effort. It was sort of like a mini truck to drive, and the platform was a mini truck platform. The Qualis was easy peasy. The power steering was super light. Of course, that didn't give you that much confidence when hustling it, but super light power steering. You could see the edges of the bonnet clearly. You could place it with millimeter perfect precision. In fact, that gave me a lot of nightmares and heart attacks because Adil would drive like that, a millimeter away from other people on the road. My God, it really gave you and built up nerves of steel. But overall, even to drive in the city, forget on the highway, because the highway it was easy, but even in the city, this was one of the easiest things that you could actually drive. And if you were a little shorter than me, I'm 5'9", if you were 5'8", 5'7", that would be the best, then you would get a proper driving position. For me, I'm too close to the steering wheel and the seat will not go back anymore. This is it. This is the max that the seat will go. And that was done in the interest of ensuring that the rear seat passengers still had space. And in fact, the earlier Qualises were like this. Honestly, this was how our Qualis was until they moved the seat a little bit further back. So I always had to drive it like this, knee too close to the gear lever. This was not comfortable. Honestly speaking, not comfortable. Even getting in and out of the thing was a problem because you had to slide your leg under the steering wheel and the steering column. But these were small problems because what the Qualis did well was quality. The Sumo, you had to know your Tata Motors, Tata Engineering in those days. You had to know the dealer really well on first name basis because you would have to keep going back and forth to the dealer. Same with the Mahindras. That was the deal. We didn't really mind it. But the Qualis, that was it. You just had to go for regular servicing. Nothing else. It needed nothing else at all. It would just go on and on. It was delightful. People loved it. Private operators, taxi guys, everybody loved the Qualis, and not without good reason. How can you complain when things don't break down, nothing falls apart? It just goes on and on and on. Of course, this had tons of body roll, and I can best illustrate it with this picture from my days at Overdrive where we are hustling our Qualis. Back then, that Qualis had done almost 1 lakh kilometers and still it could be hustled, still it could be pushed. But just look at the amount of body roll on that thing. So it was soft, huge amounts of body roll, but it could grip. It still had grip. It would not just understeer and fall off a mountain or roll over head over heels. I'm not sure if we had SUVs. Yeah, we did. We had the Safari, did we not? And this was way better than the Safari also to handle. But only thing was that this didn't give you SUV feels. This didn't make you feel like the king of the world. In a Sumo, you could push everybody off the road. In the Qualis, Sumos pushed you off the road. When the Qualis was shown for the first time at the Auto Expo, they also showed an off-road rally raid version of the Qualis. Unfortunately, nothing came of it. Years later, Toyota were to do the Etios Cup, which was a very limited success. But it's sad that Toyota never really did much motorsport in India. But anyway, I digress. And in the same breath, I must also add that I hated the Qualis. I hated it. When you sat in the passenger seat, you were sitting like this. You couldn't stretch the passenger seat all the way back, so you couldn't stretch out. And imagine, we worked all day, all evening, half the night. We've sat into the Qualis at maybe 12 o'clock in the night to drive back to Pune. You're tired, you want to take a couple of winks, nap, but you can't stretch out, so you're always sitting like this bolt upright. You could maybe recline the seat back, but your knees were always bent, you're always cramped. I hated Toyota for not letting the seat slide further back. And Adil, he also put these extra seat covers on it. He put extra mats on it. He had so many things on it. He had put some autocop alarm on the car. And once in the office in the evening, it started going pa 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 pa, refused to go off. But those days we really had fun with our cars and really used our vehicles. That's what old cars are all about. The memories. My throat is running dry now. I need a sip of water, but I can just go on and on with all the memories with the Qualis. Once, I think Vikrant, he was stuck in the third row and we were driving down to watch the stages of the India rally. And Vikrant, he had a hell of a time in the back seat, in the third row, getting bounced around, getting thrown around. We were late as usual. So we were driving like lunatics. Everyone from that original overdrive team, the team from the early 2000s, every single one of us, Adil, Aspi, Yogendra, Bertrand, Vikrant, myself, we all have tons of memories of that one single Qualis, that silver Qualis, MH12AF7542. I'm sure I'm right with that number. We did 1 lakh kilometers on it before it was sold. That was the workhorse of the overdrive team. As a support car, as a shoot car, as a drive car, as every car. Even when we went for holidays, we would take it. Wonder where that is now. I'm sure it is still chugging along. Maybe now as a taxi somewhere in some villages. From 2000 to 2005, the Qualis, it laid the foundation for the Toyota that we know, love, respect and admire today. And then in 2005, without warning, TKM axed the Qualis, brought in the Innova. In fact, that whole axing was a godsend to General Motors because then the Tavera started to sell. All those fleet operators who wanted a Qualis didn't have a Qualis, so they bought the Tavera. The Innova, it was a radical switch from an MUV to an MPV. It moved up in price, in positioning, everything. It took some time to establish itself, but Toyota was right in what they did, axing and dated product and bringing a contemporary new car, which then went on to become a massive success story. We all know the Innova success story. And of course, now there is a brand new Innova for a brave new era. Gone is the ladder frame, gone is the rear wheel drive, gone is the diesel engine. We have the monocoque, front wheel drive, hybrid, petrol, Innova, high cross. Now, how well that will do? Only time will tell. But going back the story, the success story that Toyota has had in this segment, I'm sure it will do really well. And what we do know for a fact is that the Qualis, even though now it is pushing over 2 decades, you will continue to see a few of these on the road because the quality, durability and reliability is unmatched. Thank you for watching this episode of Gone But Not Forgotten. What do you think of it? What cars should we feature on the next episode? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, do give us a thumbs up, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts and smash that bell icon. Stay notified for our video drops and of course, stay subscribed to the Evo India channel.